Hello everybody and welcome back on in to part 3 of the Reaper tutorial. We've covered how to set up recording, we have covered editing, and now we are going to cover how to render. So now you got your file all ready to go, you're ready to send it off. So there's just a couple things I do want to explain before we do that. First and foremost, if you already noticed in this track, I have 2 tracks going right now. And that's because I like the second take, and I'm wanting to use the second take for a different little side project. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mute this track so that way it does not come up in the rendering. I'm also going to specify the range in which I want the rendering to focus on. I want it just to focus on the beginning here and to the end of this audio track, which is going to be around 30 seconds. So now that I'm all ready to go, go ahead and go to render. Now, here is the rendering menu. Here's a couple things to keep in mind. Your source is going to be where it's going to try to get the audio from, which in general, you do want to keep it on the master mix. The bounds, as I've said, I'm going to do a time selection, whereas if you have one long audio take, you can actually do the entire project. It will do from when it sees an audio file, from the beginning of that to the last audio file it will see. But in my specific case, I am doing time selection. Now, the directory is going to be where is it going to render the file to. As I can go to that folder, go to the top here, hit Control-C, go over to the directory, and hit Control-V. I already have it set up to where I wanted it to go. Now, the file name, this is where you want to title the file. So whatever the client is wanting you to name the file, this is where you would put it in. So like for auditions, they would say do first name, last name, and the character. This is where you would type that. So for me, I'm doing for my file name, what I'm doing it is, the reference is Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it is the smush skill. And it is my first take that I'm doing with it. So then what the rendering to is almost like a double check for you. It's saying we're going to render it to this destination, titled it as this. That's how it's going to appear when it's rendered. Now, the other part to focus on, and because this is where it varies from client to client, but I will give you the quick and dirty of this. If you're doing anything that is just audio, no video, so audiobooks, music, they're going to have they are going to say, hey, make sure you render it with the sample rate of 44.1 or 4800 in this format and this bit. This is where you would put this info. So the sample rate is going to be 44.1 if it's purely audio, 4800 if it's going into a video. So video games, animation, anime, movies, etc. Anything that requires a video, the sample rate is going to be 4800. And the bit depth for such a video is going to be 24. Since what I'm doing is to keep it as an audio file, I'm just using it for the audio, I'm going to have it on 44.1 with a 16-bit depth. So now the other thing I want to keep in mind is the channel. Since this is for voice acting specifically, you want to keep this mono. You're going to see it comes up with mono, stereo, and then a bunch of numbers. Essentially, this is how many speakers you're trying to send it to. You want to keep it mono. Like voice actors, please keep your rendering mono, because when an audio engineer gets their hand on it, they can then mix and master it as they need to. I repeat, keep your voice acting mono. Okay, now, and generally with the rest of this, as long as it's mixed processing effects, make sure that stays checked. And then make sure with the resample, it stays with 192. Now into the primary output format. In the audition you're going to get, they are going to say render it as either a WAV file or an MP3. This is where you can make that distinction. You can go to WAV or MP3 or whatever codec they are using. I usually like to stick with WAV because it is a higher resolution and it is what's called lossless, meaning that the when it's rendering, it's going to try to capture everything within that audio file. And since I now have at 16 for its bit depth, at this point I am ready to render. Then all I have to do is hit render, and voila, it is done. Now, one other thing you may encounter that I want to also address here is if you notice how fast that was. That's because I have it, next where it has a sample rate, in the channel, you will see something called full speed offline. Like if you have it on an online render, it's going to render the same rate as the audio file, which for speed reasons, you always want to keep it on full speed offline. But with that, the file has been rendered. And now if I go over to the file and I double click and open said file, Smush skill level 3. Ugh, killing with your... As you can tell, it sounds good and it is ready for me to send off for an audition. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you want to see more content where I can break down Reaper, discuss Reaper as a whole in more depth, just please leave a like, a comment, and I will go ahead and make those videos. Anyway guys, I will see you guys next time.